interesting that people are willing to drink alcohol, take a statin, take a PPI without any hesitation. But this is the thing that they have naturally in their body. And they're just like, yeah, I don't know. That sounds crazy. So I've done a lot of podcasts on menopause, but today's podcast is different because we're going to talk about perimenopause, and that affects so many people. Today's guest is Amanda, a Yale-trained NP who owns and operates Swan Integrative Health and Wellness. She is on a mission to revolutionize healthcare by teaching both patients and providers about the different tools that they have for healing. She uses conventional and integrative approaches to inspire patients to tap in their own ability to heal. And she's also really excited about teaching the next generation of healthcare providers to do the same. And I love her for that. In today's episode, we really take some time talking about perimenopause because there is so much out there you do not need to suffer if you're in perimenopause. So let's jump in. And yeah, I'm wearing a different sweater. Okay, Amanda, I am so excited to have you here. Thank you for being here.
I'm honored to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So first, before we get to the disruption part, because that's what everybody's here for, tell us a little bit about you and like your practice as you started it.
Sure. Well, I am a nurse practitioner. I have my DNP, got my doctorate this past spring at UConn, which was great. And the practice that I currently own and operate, we have been in operation since 2016. Our focus is integrative health. We do a lot of women's health, but also some primary care, and are really just trying to change the healthcare landscape for our community. You know, people.
Sorry. I'm a super interrupter. Did you start off as integrative right from the get-go, or did you start off?
No, my path's been really interesting, I think. When I finished nursing school in 2006, I was really interested in HIV care. And I did a fellowship in Brooklyn and became an HIV specialist, and then spent 6 or 8 years in community health centers in Connecticut, taking care of people with HIV, AIDS, hepatitis C, substance abuse. So it was a great way to start my career. I learned a lot about internal medicine and primary care. And eventually I kind of burned out from that. It was a tough.
So the
tough
HIV thing, you work for someone else.
Yeah, I was in community health centers in Connecticut.
And then you decided to open up your own spot, and it was primary care.
Yeah, well, there was sort of like this bridge in between where I had a kid, and then that wasn't going well either. I struggled with breastfeeding.
Asking yourself to be perfect didn't work out?
Yeah. Can you imagine?
That is so good. You mean even though you said you're going to be the perfect mom, you weren't?
I wasn't.
That's insane. I can't believe it. I have to end this podcast right now.
Sorry.
No, that's really good. I know we're about to talk about practice, but let's say more here to like all the women out there. I know that's not what the podcast is about, but I just go where it goes. Like, that's really powerful what you said, and very vulnerable. Like, I said I'm going to do everything right, and then it wasn't.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. It really wasn't. And here I am, a nurse practitioner, a women's health specialist, somebody who's really interested in natural health and nutrition, and my kid wasn't getting what he needed from me. And I really felt like, wow, something's got to change here. I finally took the advice of a colleague who was like, listen, it's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay.
And so,
everyone listening, it's okay.
It is. It is. There shouldn't be any shame around the way that we raise our children or what we are able or not able to do for them. So once I let go of that and started to, give him some formula, and when he got to the right age, give him real, big boy food, it really made me think a lot about how I was feeding him and how I was feeding myself so that I could start to feel better and get back on my feet. And around the same time, I got involved in the CrossFit community, and there was this big like paleo thing going on at that time. And
that was a cute.
I was like, man, I drank that Kool-Aid like real fast and real hard, but it really was a gateway for me to this world of functional medicine and integrative health, because I started listening to all these podcasts about gut health and cortisol and the adrenals and nutrition. And I was like, wow, like where has this information been on my life?
But were you already, during this time, I like that paleo is a gateway to functional. That's a great t-shirt. Were you already having your own practice at that time, or were you still working I think maybe.
No, I was still at the community health center, but realizing that wasn't really serving me anymore
Okay.
and realizing I wanted to kind of go in this direction of integrative and functional medicine. So I left the community health center and jumped on board in a women's health practice where the owner was like, hey, I'm interested in this stuff too. You can kind of come here and do whatever you want.
Yeah, I love
So
it.
yeah, that was a real blessing. So I was able to, provide women's health care, but talk to people about nutrition and dip my toe in the water of, this other cool stuff that I was learning about at the same time. And then from there, I started working a day a week at a naturopath's office to kind of, just get some more experience and eventually realized that, I could do this on my own. That's sort of when I hit the ground running with my own thing and never looked back.
Amazing. That is amazing. So I was under the impression that initially you opened up a primary care practice, but in actuality, it sounds like when you finally did open up your own place, it was already integrative. Like you already
Yeah.
knew? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So you open up this integrative spot and like, how was it? Was it like well received? Like what was happening?
Yeah, it took some time, but it was very organic. People started telling other people about it, and it really grew by word of mouth pretty quickly to the point where I realized I needed a little bit of help because I couldn't see all the people.
And did you have like pushback around or like any in the community, or was it just like not a problem?
I didn't get any direct pushback up front, but I think anyone that does what we do, there is some pushback that comes from the medical community. I sometimes get referral notes back from specialists that refer to me as somebody's homeopath or naturopath or, refer to what I'm doing for their patient or our patient as something that's really crazy. I mean, it's always a little disappointing. I've mostly seen it in notes that I've received back from consults or from my patients just telling me, hey, I went to see so and they told me that the supplement that you recommended for me is total garbage and might hurt me or, it's often those stories. And I think most of my patients are aware enough to know that I know what I'm doing and they trust me and they understand that conventional folks don't always have the same knowledge that we do. And, they're happy that I
Yeah.
can kind of walk both lines for them.
It's different knowledge, like because I've had experiences like you, I empower my patients. I shouldn't say empower. I equip them and I'll say, listen, by the way, when you go see your endocrinologist, he or she is going to say there's no such thing as adrenal fatigue.
Mhm.
And I'm going to be like, don't worry about it. It's fine. Just listen to whatever I have to say. Or I will take my child who's full of eczema and I will say, Mom, we're going to take him off dairy. I'm going to give you a referral to derm, but I'm just going to let you know derm's going to tell you that dairy has nothing to do with it. And that's okay. So like I almost have to like prep them for what they're about to
Yes.
hear. My postmenopausal woman, I have to say, listen, your GYN's not going to be on board with this hormone replacement therapy. And that's okay. We're going there for the pap smear. So you have to prep your patients, right? Because otherwise, well, I always feel like with patients, I don't want them to feel like they have to figure out on their own and feel like, who do I listen to? So I kind of
Yeah,
empower them, letting them know like what's happening, right? Is that something that you're experiencing?
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I do the same, now that I've been in this long enough and I kind of know what people are going to experience on the other side. I do give them that heads up. And I think it does help them, because it's
Yeah,
hard to be a patient and be stuck in between these two worlds of two people that you really trust giving you conflicting information or feeling like they're kind of arguing over your head. And that should never be the situation.
absolutely.
So to
So do
feel
you have like your jam, like your thing that you love working on, like autoimmunity or thyroid, or like, do you have like your
Mhm.
thing that you love to work on?
I love perimenopause,
You do? Okay, say more.
yeah, it, it, it's where I'm at in my own life. So I really can relate to many of the people that are coming in to see me. I think it's an exciting time to be taking care of perimenopausal women because we have so much more information now compared to generations before us. And we have so many tools. We can really help women thrive during this time of life that should be a time in life when we're able to thrive. It's an important time for our careers and our families and our own sort of self growth and self empowerment. But it's hard to do all that when you feel so crappy. So
Okay,
to have
I
tools
love
to,
this. I love this because we have some podcasts on menopause and I've done podcasts on PCOS. but let's talk perimenopause. Like, let's talk
Mhm.
perimenopause, because
Okay.
it's so funny that you're saying this, because until recently, so I don't take on functional patients anymore, but I also was taking care of postmenopausal women, and I was erroneously thinking, and I can't wait to hear your opinion on this, that I really couldn't start hormones on women until, and I was doing some such a disservice. I didn't know that. I'd be like, listen, hang tight. After menopause, I'm gonna be able
Yeah.
to help you out. And I'm also in perimenopause, and I have started using Kim Heifner, who was one of our podcast guests a few months ago. She's like a hormone guru, and she really educated me on perimenopause. And my life has never been the same. It's so much better. I have referred a lot of patients to her. So, can you first define for everyone what perimenopause is, and then tell us the type of things we can? Because everyone's like, "Oh, hot flashes." Oh my gosh, so much more than that, right? So, tell
Mhm.
us what perimenopause is.
Yeah, perimenopause is the period of time that leads up to what we call your final menstrual period, FMP, which is that last period that you ever have in your whole life, as long as it is for, spontaneous natural reasons. It's different if you have an IUD put in or you have surgery and that's why you don't have a period anymore. Those are kind of special situations. But the very last period that you have, the day that happens, that's considered menopause. Everything after that is postmenopause, but the 5 to 10 years leading up to that point, and technically the year after, are considered perimenopause, so the time around your last period. It's a big chunk of time
Huge
and
chunk of time.
huge. And think about 10, if the average age of menopause in the US is about 51, 52, 10 years before that is 41, 42. And most 41, 42-year-olds are not thinking that they're perimenopausal, or even 38, 39.
Yeah.
But maybe their sleep is getting disrupted. Maybe they're suddenly super irritable. Maybe their periods are changing. Maybe their joints are achy. So they're going to go to their practitioner to talk about those things and probably not know and not be supported through the fact that this is your natural changes. This is perimenopause. There's ways we can help you. Or just having that knowledge that, okay, this is what's happening.
Or validation, like I'm not crazy.
Game changer. Game changer.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there are symptoms, which is true, but I think some people don't even recognize the symptoms. We think insomnia, we think sometimes hot flashes, night sweats, but anxiety, not feeling like yourself. Like a lot of women will say, like, I'm just not myself. And everything's like fine, nothing's wrong. I'm just not myself. More irritable. And it's subtle. It doesn't have to be like this, like really intense thing. And a lot of women during this time will reach for medication, right? Like anti-anxiety, antidepressant medication. Nothing wrong with that. I prescribe it. But imagine if it could be fixed otherwise.
Yeah.
So what do you do with the perimenopausal woman? How do you treat them?
Well, it's really individualized. There are women that are really interested in starting hormones if that's appropriate for them, and others that are still kind of squeamish about that, and that's totally okay. There's a lot we can do with lifestyle during this time to make people feel better. We know that people that exercise regularly, eat a good anti-inflammatory diet, take certain supplements, optimize certain micronutrients, they tend to feel better just with those interventions.
Absolutely.
And what an important time in our life to be really dialing in our health anyways, right?
Sure, sure. For longevity.
So, yeah. Yeah, setting good habits for the next 40, 50 years. Getting alcohol out of there at least,
Yes.
maybe not
I
all the
know
way,
it's the
but
one. It's the one that people really don't want to let go of. Especially there's like a whole world of like fancy wines and getting to know the wines, and there's a whole world around alcohol. So it is hard to let go. I just want anyone listening. I think anyone who's listening already knows that if you're going to drink wine around this time, you're not sleeping.
Mm.
You're not sleeping, and you're not 100% the next day. And so I tell my patients, if you want it, that's fine, but just know like what's going on. It's true. Alcohol is a biggie. Do you do
Yeah.
anything else besides lifestyle? Are you comfortable prescribing hormones for the perimenopause?
Yeah.
Tell
Yeah,
us
I'm
about
very
that.
comfortable with it. You know, I really am a big believer that hormones should be discussed for everyone, and every woman deserves to be educated about the
Mm,
safety and how far we've come in understanding how safe they are. Of course, there's risks in anything that we do, but all the big scary risks of hormones that we thought were a problem back in the 2000s, we've learned so much since then. And yeah, so many women have missed out on the opportunity to really feel better.
Oh my God, that's so true. I was just talking to a colleague, a friend, a client, and who's been on hormones, and she's in her late 60s, and she's like, I wish I knew this earlier. Like, she's like, I feel like by the time I got to know this, but 10 years ago, we weren't talking about it this way.
We
It
weren't.
was still scary.
Yep.
And people have access to it. And, and I've said this on several podcasts, like, this is not just hot flashes. This is Alzheimer's prevention. This is cardiac prevention. This is osteoporosis prevention. And and here's the part that gets me. And I was just saying it this morning, like, you've had estrogen in your body all the time and it wasn't dangerous. Why is it suddenly becoming dangerous now? It's not at appropriate doses or appropriate timing. It just can't be. You're replacing the thing that was always there. And it's interesting that people are willing to drink alcohol, take a statin, take a PPI without any hesitation. But this is the thing that they have naturally in their body. And they're just like, yeah, I don't know. That sounds crazy.
Yeah.
Right? That's crazy.
Yeah. And I think the medical community has been really confused too, because we talk about estrogen, but the estrogens that we give people, it's actually a lot of differences and variation between different products, right? And so the synthetic estrogens do have some risk. Taking estrogen orally does have more risk than using a transdermal through the skin estrogen, especially something like estradiol that's bioidentical. So we've lumped all estrogens into this bucket of, risk for blood clots and hypertension, et cetera, when in fact, transdermal estrogen has great safety data and is covered by insurance and easy to use. And I'm like, whoa.
What are we doing? Yeah.
What are we doing?
And then also, like, relationships, right? Like, how many women have you heard say, like, they don't want to have sex with their partners anymore because it's painful? And, like, relationships are so affected by this. Well, also, like, the emotional component of a relationship as well, but, like, even just something as simple as having sex, suddenly not wanting to because it's so painful, and it can be solved.
Yeah.
It's all
so
solvable.
simply.
It's so simple.
Solvable.
Yeah.
It's all solvable. So I think, we're entering this new phase of perimenopausal management. I think there's a lot of good stuff going on in social media. People, big followings that are getting the word out. So that, that's where we're at societally. Yeah. That's how we move mountains. And there's definitely some movers out there. So it's exciting and it's fun. It's really gratifying to be able to send somebody away with some really good tools and have them come back and feel better and feel more like themselves and feel like they can actually, like, be themselves in the world and move forward and, just
absolutely
live their best life. That's what we're all here to do.
You practice in Connecticut, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So first of all, if anyone who's in Connecticut, if you're perimenopausal, you have to go to see Amanda Swan. First of all, what a cool last name. And it's called Swan Integrative. It's like the coolest name ever. When I met Amanda first, I'm like, that's not really your last name. I couldn't believe it. But anyone listening anywhere, the news flash here is that perimenopause, you don't have to suffer through it. And a lot of the symptoms that you might be thinking that you might not be associating perimenopause are, and you can get ahead of it. And don't be scared of hormones, because the studies show also that the earlier we start replacing hormones, the better we are for our brains, the better we are for our heart, right? So think about it this way, to my listeners, like, we don't want to kind of go down on estrogen. I mean, this is what many of us do, but this is what we do, right? We go down, then we realize our period's over, and then we start titrating back up again. Fine, it's great if we do that, but how cool would it be if we could just maintain levels? That doesn't mean, by the way, that your period is going to stay on. Your period's going to go away still. It does, like, don't think that because people think that sometimes, like, oh, if I'm going to have hormones, my period won't stop. Yes, it will. That's going to happen regardless. And it is a game changer. You get your life back. And I think, to your point, it is the busiest time. You're dealing with your parents, your children, your career. Some people are going back for another degree. It's like the busiest time. It's not the time to have issues. What else do you love treating?
I love helping people with their guts. I love talking about the microbiome. I think it's so exciting and something that really impacts all of us. And there's really simple interventions that can go a long way to helping people feel better from a gut perspective.
You have any, like, case that stands out in your mind?
I've had some good luck helping people that have chronic infections, chronic vaginal infections, urinary tract infections, really helping them with their gut health, knowing that there is this crosstalk that happens between the microbiome that's in our digestive tract and the microbiome that's in our vaginas and our urethras and other parts of our body. And when people are coming back, I mean, talk about frustrating, right? People that have chronic vaginitis, chronic UTIs, that can really take you out of your game.
Oh my God.
Often happens in perimenopause and menopause because of hormone changes. So that's an important piece of that as well. But I have found that diving into gut health in those cases can really make a difference.
Yeah. For anyone listening who has like chronic infections or interstitial cystitis,
Mm-hmm.
the microbiome is not just in the gut. The microbiome is everywhere, including your bladder. Your bladder is not sterile, including your lungs. The
Yeah.
microbiome is
Skin.
skin, everywhere, everywhere, vagina, everywhere. And so the work that you do in the gut is going everywhere. So if you have a chronic issue, that I like that you said that crosstalk. It's crosstalk because you're repopulating the whole ecosystem everywhere. It's so interesting that you said that because, kind of unrelated, just related to the microbiome. I recently spoke to someone, he specializes in pulmonology. And he's like, what happens to the lungs when we keep taking inhaled steroids for changing the microbiome of the lungs? And it's something I never considered before, right? Because it's very localized and it's helping. I'm not telling people not to take your inhaler. Please take your inhaler. But that's a conversation to have. Like what's happened to the microbiome with that, right? Because if we're consistently putting steroids anywhere else, we would something to consider. So looking at the vagina, the bladder in terms of microbiome is so forward thinking. And there was so much that you could do to me. I also have had many cases of interstitial cystitis completely resolved after years of antibiotics, right? Getting off of that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. What else do you love treating?
We do a lot of thyroid management in the practice too, which is fun. We think of the thyroid as being really straightforward. You take levothyroxine, you get your labs checked, boom, end of story. That's it. But we know in integrative and functional medicine, right, that there's many different ways to manage thyroid disease. And if you get creative and think outside the box a little bit, people can really feel really good.
Give me an example of a creative.
I'm not afraid to use things like desiccated thyroid, like Armor and NP thyroid, and those kind of quote unquote natural thyroid hormone replacement products. And sometimes I use them in combination with levothyroxine or something like tyrosine, which is a gel cap version of levothyroxine, to really get the right ratio of T3 and T4, because it's hard to do that with just one product or the other. And I think any conventional endocrine doctor would probably cringe hearing me say that, but there's no reason why we can't do that. And
Oh my God.
why wouldn't we want to optimize levels for people and really try to match up what their own thyroid is trying to do?
And before I kind of explain that to our audience, I just want to ask you one question. What number do you try to go for on your TSH?
I like to see it definitely below 2.5, below 2 even. I try to keep it within the range. So it's a little different for everybody.
So let me translate that a little bit to our audience, anyone who's dealing with thyroid issues. Well, let me just say, what are thyroid issues? Like a lot of times we think, we know my audience is pretty well versed. They've heard the term Hashimoto's. So those are people who have autoimmune issues that is attacking their thyroid. So we have that crowd. But we also, all of us, our thyroid kind of slowed down. You don't have to have Hashimoto's to have a kind of lower functioning thyroid. And that's your energy, that's your ability to lose weight. There's a lot happening there. So optimizing your thyroid, you don't, I'm saying it again, you don't have to have Hashimoto's to think about optimizing your thyroid. It's part of the longevity piece. It's part of like keeping your brain on point. And what I just asked Amanda about this range is in Quest or LabCorp, whatever company, I'm waiting for someone to come kill me for saying all these names. The normal is up to like 4 point something. And so we've normalized you'll come up in the green all the way to a TSH level of 4, which really is sluggish. And so we're walking around I'm just going to focus on women for a second. We walk around women, exactly, I'm really tired, having trouble losing weight. Your thyroid's like 3.89, you're fine, go home. And that's not true. That's a sluggish thyroid. And just because I don't have Hashimoto's doesn't mean I don't need help. And so most of the time, what's being replenished is T4, which is levothyroxine. What Amanda's talking about is there's more to thyroid than just T4. There's also T3. And a lot of people are hesitant to give T4 and T3, but T3 is the active form. And giving both is important. And it's not enough to just be okay, to just have enough. You really want to be optimized there. So finding a provider like you that is comfortable giving T4 and T3 and understands that we need that tweaking is so important. Again, back to changing your life.
Yeah.
Right? Give me energy. So do you consider yourself a medical disruptor?
Yeah. Well, as much as, I really feel like when I'm doing my practice, what you're doing is the way that people deserve to be treated and cared for. It's not how people are treated and cared for. And it's sad to me that we have to be the disruptors, that this isn't the norm, but I feel so strongly about it that I'm willing to do whatever it takes to shake things up, because this is what people deserve. People deserve to be heard, treated as a whole person, treated comprehensively. And yeah.
And isn't it crazy that just can't be done in conventional medicine through
Yeah.
no, it can't be. It literally can't be. It's painful. But you're right. I say this all the time. I wish this wasn't disruptive. I wish it wasn't disruptive to say that each person should have personalized care, treated holistically, have time to hear their whole story. I wish that was the case.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Is there anything else you want to tell our shared audience before?
Well, I don't know if this is worth mentioning, but I'll mention it. Another thing I'm really trying to disrupt is medical and nursing education, because I think that's really where this disruption needs to start, is teaching people that are going into our fields how to practice in a different way. And getting that education with your basic medical and nursing education. I think students are really hungry for this. Students want to learn about nutrition. Students want to learn about the microbiome, but they're not. And if we can start changing that in curriculum across the country, then that's really where the disruption is going to happen.
So you're advocating to have like functional medicine already in the curriculum when they're in school?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I wish it was happening in med school as well.
Yep.
They have like one class about nutrition and it's always about like scurvy. And
right.
Like no one has scurvy. There's no more pirates out there. There's no one has scurvy anymore. So there is no class about utilizing nutrition as medicine. It just doesn't exist. I wish that was everywhere. You're right, because what happens, I'm sure this happened for you. What happens is you go to school and you learn all the conventional things, and then you have to go and learn more, right? You have to go to
spend more money,
functional medicine.
Yeah.
Spend more money, spend more time,
Mm-hmm.
and unlearn some things. And how nice would it be to actually, so not everyone's going to do that.
Right.
Not everyone can do that. Not everyone has the bandwidth to do that, or the curiosity, or the resources to do it. And so you were left with people who are crazy like us, who are like, no, I'm going in. But it would be so much better if we can prepare an army of people where this was the norm. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Amanda, this was so amazing. I'm loving the conversation about perimenopause. This is like, people need to know. People need to know it's not like from your last period on. All your 40s, as you said, sometimes even your 30s, right? Because if you're going to get menopause at 48, starting at 38, you're not crazy if you're listening, if you're feeling the feels. Find someone like Amanda. And if you're Connecticut, obviously only go to Amanda. But if you're not, find someone like Amanda and get the care that you deserve.